Hi everyone, this is Emily with Moms with Cameras, and I am so excited to be doing a new video post for you today. We are going to do a back to the basics segment, and I'm going to cover the difference between broad and short lighting. Knowing the difference between these two lighting patterns and how to and when to employ them is really great for being able to flatter your subjects, and I love that because I feel like when my clients look their very best in their images, they love those photos that much more. So that's a really important goal of mine. We are going to get started first with clearing up a little bit of terminology when I'm talking about the broad side of the face and the short side of the face, or the broad side and the narrow side of the face. I don't necessarily mean that a client has an asymmetrical face. What I'm referring to is when you were looking at an image, there's going to be typically, unless they're looking straight on at you, there's going to be part of the image that is wider or that is closer to the camera, and another part of the image that is narrower, or another part of the face that is narrower within the image and is turned away from the camera. It's further from the camera. So if you took a measuring tape and kind of measured to the cheek on the left, you would see, oh, that one's closer to the camera. And if I took that same measuring tape and went from me to the cheek, to her cheek on the right, you would see that it's turned away. So that's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about, the wider side of her face. It's not that she has a wider side. It's within the image, the wider side of the face. So let's get started. The first type of lighting pattern I'm going to talk about is broad lighting. And broad lighting is when that wider side of her face, the face that is closer to the camera, is illuminated by the main light, or some people call it a key light. And so you can see in my lighting setup, I have my light would be over here, and the light is going across her face this way. And so this part of her face that is turned towards the camera is receiving the most light. The narrow part, the part of her face that is further from the camera, is what's falling into the shadows. I do not use this lighting pattern very often, and the big reason is because it adds weight to the face. It makes the face look wider than it really is. And for 99% of people, they do not want that to happen. I know I certainly do not. So in general, I'm not using broad lighting. There are a couple of exceptions. One is that if I have like a really scrawny boy, teenage boy come in for senior portraits, we might broad light him a little bit to try to add a little bit of bulk there, and across his body you can kind of light that way and it'll add a little bit of bulk. Or if you have a woman that just, sometimes you have people that have like such a thin face that it almost makes them look harsh, even if they're the sweetest person ever, they just look a little bit hard-edged. And so then you can broad light at that point too. It'll soften up the face a little bit, soften the features a little bit, and add a touch of femininity for this kind of sharp featured person. But aside from those two instances, I typically don't broad light. You will notice my girl here, she's pretty slender, so she handled it okay, but I actually did not intend for this image to be broadly lit. She was turned, her nose, the tip of her nose was turned towards the main light, and then she said, or I said something and she laughed, or she might have been laughing at me. It happens a lot. But when she did that, she turned her face away to laugh, and I went ahead and caught this image because I knew it would be saleable, that the parents would want it, and they did wind up purchasing this. But in general, I wouldn't have chosen to broadlight her, but it makes a good example. So we're going to go to the next one, and this is short lighting, and it's just the reverse. So the part of the face, like again, if I took a measuring tape and went to her cheeks, the part of her face that is closer to me is in shadow. The part of her face that is turned away from the camera is where the main light is hitting. The wonderful thing about this lighting pattern, is my favorite way to light, is that it slims the face, and people tend to like that. So when they look at themselves and you've shaved 10 pounds off, they really do like that. Or, even if you've just added a little bit of angle and dimension, it's kind of great. You can make this effect stronger if you minimize your fill light. So like for example, and I'll post in the actual blog post, I'll post the link to my lighting setup. But you will notice that in my lighting setup, I have my main light is coming in from the left, and my fill light is directly behind me. So if I'm the photographer, I'm standing, I don't know, 6 feet or 8 feet away from this girl, and then behind me and raised over my head and pointing down at her is my fill light. That's my lighting setup. And so I can make this a stronger short lighting pattern if I turn down that fill light so that the difference between the highlight side and the shadow side is less. Sometimes with teenage boys, with senior boys, I'll go ahead and just kill that fill light all the way, so we'll have lots of light over on this side and it's very dark over here, almost a split lighting pattern. Or you can make it weaker, like if I was photographing a family, like let's say this was mom, and then I've also got a kiddo here and a kiddo here and dad, I don't want them to fall into total shadow just because they're not facing this main light, and I would have brought it around a bit too. But I want to make sure that I have good light in all their eyes, and so I would have cranked up my fill light so that the ratio between my highlight side and my shadow side are a little closer together, not so contrasty. So I'm going to show you a girl. This is a senior girl, and she was photographed in both lighting patterns, and I think this most clearly shows what a huge difference it makes in how it affects the face. On this girl, her face is rounder. It's almost kind of a heart-shaped face, and she's darling. She's a slender girl. She's not heavy. But when we broad lit her, it made her, I mean, the space between the cheeks and along the neckline, to me it looks very wide. Whereas when we did our short lighting pattern, you can see it slims her face quite a bit. It gives some really nice contouring along the chin line or the jawline, and so I just feel like it really is so much more flattering for her, and that's typical. Most people, I think, look better in broad light. Or I'm sorry, most people look better in short light. So a lot of you I know photograph outdoors, you're on location, you're not necessarily in a studio. The big difference between being indoors in the studio and outside is in the studio, if I get my shot all set up, like let's say I'm doing a toddler or something like that, and I get my shot all set up and I realize, oh shoot, I'm broad lighting or I'm doing a lighting pattern I don't like, I can move my lights. On location, obviously, nobody is able to move the sun, and so you have to move your subject um, in reference, or like you have to move your subject as it relates, as it relates to the sun. So what you're going to do is, in general, what I tell people to do is take the tip of the nose for your subject and point it toward the light. So if you have somebody that is on a porch, for example, it's a great way to kind of block overhead light, and you have great open sky to the right side of that porch, then you're going to point their nose in the direction of that open sky and you'll get a good short lighting pattern. And then you can also, if you're outdoors and you're wanting to manipulate things a little bit further, you can employ tools like a reflector or gobos and kind of change the direction of where the light's coming from using those tools. But if you're just going to go with exactly as it is, as it's coming from the sun, then I like to tell people just take the nose and point it. And so then you should see a shadow side that is bigger than the highlight side, and you'll know you've got it. So if you don't know about us, if you randomly found us on YouTube or something like that, we are Moms with Cameras. It is a website for mothers who are professional photographers and they really mean business. Our website is moms-with-cameras.com. We are also on Facebook and Twitter. You can see the links there. And if you want to check out my personal work, the work that I do for my clients, then you can go to facebook.com/EmilyPottsPhotography, or you can also just find us at emilypotts.com. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned something. If you have questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section or to shoot me an email using the contact form on the blog, and I hope this gave you a great tool to put in your box for how to create portraits that really flatter your subjects. Thanks so much. Bye.